Welcome to Forthright. I am Sulani Madsen, bringing you an audio podcast of my weekly newspaper column with additional commentary to follow. This one was published Thursday, August 29th, 2024 in the Spokesman Review titled, Ecology Dropped the Ball, DOL Picked It Up. It's rare to hear praise for the Department of Licensing from the small government conservative chorus, but this time DOL gets to be the hero. The Department of Ecology dropped the ball on its duties under the Climate Commitment Act, and DOL picked it up. Quote, DOL has actually been amazing to work with, said Bree Elsie, Director of Governmental Affairs for the Washington Farm Bureau. Ecology didn't meet their obligations, end quote, and a work group was assembled to follow through on the original legislative intent of the Climate Commitment Act, commonly referred to as the CCA. When the Washington legislature passed the CCA in 2021, it hinged on the votes of moderate Democrats. The original legislation directed the Department of Ecology to provide an exemption for agriculture from the fees that would inevitably be passed along to consumers in the form of higher fuel and energy prices. That's right, the same legislation Governor Jay Inslee publicly insisted would add only pennies to the price of fuel acknowledged the added cost. The CCA required Ecology to figure out a way to exempt a critical industry from the inevitably more than pennies price increases that would result. The exemption was supposed to cover farm fuel use and fuels used for transporting ag products. Quote, we have one trucking company owed over $1 million just in fees, end quote, Elsie said. Ecology attempted to comply by offering an exemption to fuel wholesalers who would have an incentive to offer reduced price fuel to customers working in agriculture, said Carolyn Halter, a spokeswoman for Ecology. Not all wholesalers applied for the exemption. Ecology has worked to bring more wholesalers on board across the state, Halter said. Not all wholesalers took up the offer to manage two-tiered pricing, and a wholesale exemption is useless for small farms purchasing at retail locations or, well, trucking on down the road. In 2023, the legislature was convinced to cover some of the costs. Elsie said, quote, Ecology and I went toe-to-toe during the session, my evidence versus their evidence, and it was interesting to hear them try to explain nothing to see here to justify what they're doing. Probably the most fun work session I've ever done, end quote. The $30 million allocated for rebates is far short of what Elsie estimates as approximately $100 million in damages. Quote, we want people to apply because we need this data. Ag needs this support. The program is flawed, and Ecology has been 100% unwilling to fix it. This isn't over. This is being litigated in the courts, end quote. The Washington Farm Bureau and Washington Trucking Association case against the Washington Department of Ecology was dismissed by Thurston County Superior Court Judge Chris Lanise in July and appealed to the Washington Supreme Court on Tuesday. Washington Farm Bureau participated in the negotiations to set up a workable program to administer the fuel rebates. Quote, DOL didn't necessarily want to be saddled with this, but they've been consummate professionals in this, Elsie said. A pilot project was set up to check that it would work as well for the large agribusinesses buying fuel wholesale as for the small farms buying fuel retail. And, quote, we brought in farmers to test the program to make it as easy as possible, but not ripe for fraud, with paper versions for people without internet, Elsie said. The program for rebates on 2023 fuel purchases just launched on Monday. Michael Schmidt, cattle rancher and former candidate for the legislature, is one of those small operations buying retail. Quote, we keep hearing the CCA doesn't hurt the farmer, but nobody showed us the path to what we do about it. Might be $50,000 to $60,000 in diesel for transporting our cattle. 46 cents a gallon back would be nice, but we didn't keep receipts. Didn't know we needed to, end quote. Our family ranching operation didn't save those little slips of curly paper printed in disappearing ink either. For a cautious skeptic, signing an attestation that threatens the possibility of significant penalties, fine, or imprisonment for doing it wrong begged the question, is the rebate worth the risk? Elsie said she understands a reluctance to be drawn into another government program, but receipts aren't necessary, and she convinced me to try the application as a case study for a small farm. The rebates are tiered in 5 ranges and don't require exact gallons, which isn't something a small farm necessarily tracks. Some of our fuel is purchased specifically for farm-owned vehicles, but some is purchased for multiple-use vehicles. For farm-owned vehicles, we know dollars paid and can back out gallons using the average price per gallon for 2023. For the truck that sometimes pulls a livestock trailer and sometimes is simply the only way to get down the driveway in winter, we have IRS records separating out farm use. Elsie reassured me that estimating gallons purchased using mileage and average miles per gallon would meet the best of my knowledge and belief accuracy test for the attestation. I tried it. It took 30 minutes. Elsie now has more data to work with, and I'll join the chorus of congratulations to the fine professionals at the Department of Licensing. So the good news was a week after that filing, I got a notice that our application was accepted and we're getting our money back. Not the state's money, our money. My first draft of the column did not include a quote from the Department of Ecology, but my editor insisted that I needed to reach out. In my opinion, and this did after all appear on the opinion page, Ecology messed up in not putting a workable system for the ag exemption in place as they were originally tasked to do, and I didn't see that I needed to ask. But my editor was right. It was the right thing to do. I called and chatted with the nice woman in Ecology's communications department, and we had an exchange by email. Briefly, it went like this. Ecology said, it's not accurate to say that there is no exemption in place. The recent ruling out of Thurston Court made it clear that the Department of Ecology is implementing the law within our authority as an agency. And in rebuttal, Ecology didn't mention that ruling out of the Superior Court in Thurston County, a court known to rubber stamp agency decisions, has already been appealed to the Washington State Supreme Court, so it was inaccurate to imply that it's settled. And then next, Ecology said, again quoting, it's up to fuel suppliers to claim exemptions provided in the Climate Commitment Act and sell fuel to farmers without surcharges. They have an economic incentive to do so. Ecology cannot force suppliers to change their prices, but we can and have done is provide guidance and one-on-one support on how to track and report exempt fuel sales accurately. Okay, and to that I say, yeah, that's dreaming. Ecology was told from the beginning this was not going to work. That economic incentive only exists in areas where there's multiple suppliers of fuel instead of just one. Asking wholesale suppliers to figure out what an end user is buying fuel for is like asking potato growers to figure out if the guy buying the potatoes at Yolks is going to make French fries or mashing them as a base for gravy. It didn't work. It became so clear that it wasn't working that the legislature had to step in to push a rebate program in the next session. And the last statement from Ecology was this. Ecology says, we understand that challenges remain, but there's been a lot of progress on this issue. There are now fuel suppliers in nearly every part of the state claiming the exemption. Notice it says nearly. We also support the $30 million that the legislature approved to help farmers who have paid CCH surcharges as suppliers develop their systems for claiming the exemption. We appreciate the agricultural community's engagement on this new climate policy and will continue to be responsive to concerns. So that's basically a way of saying thank you to the legislature for bailing them out for not getting the job done right the first time. And I noticed that this statement still puts the onus on suppliers to develop their systems for claiming the exemption instead of Ecology developing a system to prevent the cost from being levied on the fuel. While major agribusiness near the Idaho and Oregon borders can just buy fuel outside the state by the tanker load, or they're making trackable bulk purchases, which wholesalers can indeed identify, small farm and ranch operations buying retail will, in the future, still be left collecting those little slips of curly paper printed in disappearing ink, at least when the gas station pump isn't out of paper. I don't see a system in place at this point to help going from this point forward for 2024, and that rebate was just for 2023. There's no system in place for 2024 to help those small farms with those additional fuel costs they've been experiencing. As always, reference links are included on the Substack post of this week's background reading. You are invited to subscribe for notifications of new content on a variety of regional topics with or without a pledge. And for the paid subscribers, thank you. And I am planning a new series with more national commentary as the election unfolds. Stay tuned, as the old radio shows used to say, and thank you for listening.